Greetings acolytes, Evrengost here, this time talking about Dark Heresy, the second CRPG from Owlcat Games set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Some days ago, Anatoly Shestov, executive producer on both Rogue Trader and Dark Heresy, had an interview during the New Game Plus Showcase 2026. He talked about both games, and I've already made a video on the new details he shared for Rogue Trader's third DLC, the one about tracing the Infinite. The original interview is linked in the description below, if you want to watch it. Imagine the true Warhammer stories, in which no choice is the good one, but you don't have the option to walk away. You need to get your hands dirty, and it's just a matter of how precisely you'll achieve this. The stakes are not your reputation, not your alignment, or your experience points. The stakes are the survival of the last bastion of humankind. These words are the elevator pitch Anatoly gave for Dark Heresy, and I think they're just great because they capture the real essence of a game that's not only set in the Warhammer 40k universe, but also a game in which you are an acolyte of the Inquisition, investigating the mysteries of the Tyrant Star and the Night Lord's involvement in the catastrophe that's looming on the horizon of Scintilla, the Calixis sector capital world. We won't be one of the highest imperial nobles this time. It's true that working for the Inquisition gives an individual a lot of leeway and the right to be judge, jury and executioner, but this time we're not a big shot. We're a cog in the machine. I've played the alpha version of Dark Heresy, and I assure you that's how you feel. There are people bossing you around, and poor sots you boss around in return, because they're at the end of the food chain. You have to watch your back, both from the outside and from the inside. The battle for power is always raging, and you don't want to be crushed by it. Also, what are you going to do when you're facing a gang leader of the Underhive, whose brutal minions outnumber and outgun you? It sucks to be a guy with a badge today. Anatoly described Dark Heresy as imagining playing inside the Warhammer 40k universe, but standing on the side of the guys who can't use armies, and have to make the Imperium stand for one more day before crumbling to dust. No pressure. Warhammer means dark stories, and we're going to have a lot of them. Besides introducing the game to a new audience, Anatoly was asked in what way Dark Heresy differs from Rogue Trader, and he had a lot to say on the matter. In my opinion, from what I tested, Dark Heresy is an evolution with a different focal point. A little bit like Wrath of the Righteous was an evolution of Kingmaker, but this time they also shifted focus by making us a detective in the dark grim future. We're going to investigate cases, of course, but the first difference he wanted to mention is the interaction with the environment. Areas now not only have the occasional fight, interaction or hidden object to spot, but play a core role in the whole game. I can attest that you comb these areas thoroughly, looking for clues and people to interrogate. You play more around the environment, hunting for stuff you might have missed, or new interactions that become available only after someone tells you where to look or what to search for. The second thing Anatoly wanted to stress is that they completely reworked combat. They changed how cover and line of sight work, both in calculations and in how much benefit they provide. They chose to abandon what he called the stand-up mechanic, meaning when a unit in combat steps out of cover to shoot and then goes back behind it. I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I really liked that part in Rogue Trader. It felt immersive because it's believable, but then he explained that they wanted to give more importance to the places where you start and end your turns, and that kind of made sense when he said it. In Rogue Trader there were entire party setups that completely ignored the cover mechanic, and worked terribly well by having the party bundled together, with the various party members' abilities synergizing with each other. I wonder if this way of playing will emerge in Dark Heresy too. Anatoly doesn't seem to be bothered by these kinds of things, instead wanting the players to experience the game as they see fit. They also removed magazine capacity for ranged weapons and the reloading mechanic, which was eating up some action points in fights. He said they want to free the player from some of the mental burden, while they're introducing new mechanics. Anatoly also affirmed that there are now more roles to cover during a fight, and since I don't think they're going to add dozens of character archetypes, I believe he was referring to the different archetype specializations we can choose, and how wildly different gameplay can be depending on those choices. For instance, an officer can be a combat morale specialist, a companion buffer, or an enemy debuffer, and so on. Probably itemization will also play a big role in this. Another point he wanted to make, and that's immediately apparent in the alpha, is that now there are more ways to interact with combat and end it. Environmental interactions like having crates fall on your enemies, breaking chains, or hacking into cogitators abound. He specifically mentioned the first Kroot fight you have, when there is a Krootox on a rampage and a friendly Kroot asks you not to kill it, but to cage it. There is a cage on the battlefield, and you can lure it inside and lock it in. Doing so makes the fight a little more difficult, but saving the beast changes the disposition of the Kroot kindred towards you. He also mentioned that there is a completely new way to approach critical hits, which is through aimed shots. Now you can choose which enemy body part to target, possibly accepting a malus on the chance to hit to maim your opponent, depriving them of the possibility to move, use abilities, blinding them, and so on. I found it very useful to interrupt enemies that are casting powerful concentration abilities. Another important upgrade to combat Anatoly wanted to explain is the change from the momentum mechanic to the morale system. In Rogue Trader, momentum is a party-based resource you utilize to activate powerful heroic acts. Morale is now twofold instead. It substitutes momentum, and every unit on the battlefield has its own, meaning you can break a single unit's morale and have them panic or become heroic independently from one another. There is also a global morale indicator that allows you to end combat early if you're dominating the battlefield. It makes sense. If you're clearly winning, some units are willing to surrender, and you are free to accept it or keep killing them. It happens quite often in the alpha, and apparently you don't lose loot by doing so. It's implied that in the full game there will be consequences if you kill or accept the surrender of important NPCs. On a more superficial note, at least you don't need to chase the last enemy into the corner of the map, which can be a little bothersome sometimes. Moving on, some of the interview time was spent on the new investigation system. The executive producer said that this time they're not just telling a story through the environment, the fights, and the dialogue. In Dark Heresy, we are investigating cases, following clues, collecting evidence, and interviewing people. We'll discuss the cases with our companions and draw conclusions. And as any good member of the Inquisition, we are free to accuse, charge a suspect, and deliver punishment. No one will judge us if we're right or wrong. We'll be making the hard choices. In some cases, we can frame a random person, by mistake or because we're removing an obstacle in the Imperium's path. It's been stressed that we don't act in a vacuum, and even if in most instances we are the person in charge, there are powerful forces in motion on Scintilla, and we'll be struggling for power. They want the world to react to our choices. Anatoly made an example we can see in the alpha. At a certain point, we'll have to decide which place to go first to further our investigation. The Underhive is drowning in toxic waste, and if we go there second, most of the place will be flooded and situations, people and dialogues will be different. We can actually see this in the two different scenarios the alpha offers us. A very interesting bit was about Inquisition convictions. As is known, there are Puritans and Radicals. While investigating, we'll be able to make choices leading to one side or the other of the spectrum, and the more we push ourselves toward one side, the more that faction will become powerful in Scintilla. An interesting question was asked about how Owlcat intend to make their CRPGs more accessible to a wider audience, and it was funny because the response was that they don't think in those terms. Dark Heresy will be fully voice-acted, and it will be the first Owlcat game to be so. It will incidentally be a way to make the game more accessible to new players, but they decided to allocate a lot of the budget to it with the intent of furthering immersion. Voicing the characters helps in delivering their stories better, and that's what they're focused on. They don't intend to streamline their systems to appeal to a bigger audience, because they don't feel it's the right choice for them. They want to play those complex CRPGs and are making a game they'd want to play. I have to say that this is a bold statement, since no company wakes up one day not wanting to sell more of their products. In the alpha, there are design choices that clearly indicate a more direct and clear approach to some systems, and while I wouldn't call it streamlining, it certainly is in the game's burden. Things like using ability toggles instead of clicking them every turn show they're trying to avoid the situation that make Rogue Trader a clickfest. Another interesting bit is the double faction reputation system. Now we can increase our influence with the various factions, like the Adeptus Mechanicus, the local military, the local Drusian church, and so on, in two ways. We can assert our influence over them with force or with diplomacy, and these are different indicators. It's implied that the faction will react differently depending not only on our general standing with them, but also in how we treat them. The fight with the mechanical tree was mentioned. In the alpha, depending on how you choose to resolve this fight, you'll modify your reputation with the Adeptus Mechanicus. They won't be happy if you damage their property, and this will influence your faction reputation with them. This is all I gather from the first part of the interview, which was split between Rogue Trader and Dark Heresy. If you're interested in Rogue Trader 2, check out the video I've made on the next Necron DLC. It's performing very well and I don't know why. What's the difference with my usual stuff? As always, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Remember to activate the purity seals below, like and subscribe. It helps me reach more people and understand which audience my videos reach. Take care of yourself and I'll see you in the next video.